Hi, friends, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wednesday Word on January 20th, 2021. Here at First United Methodist Church, we've begun a new worship series called Converted, with a question mark on the end. And the question underlying our worship services and our exploration of Scripture over the next few weeks is, how deeply and to what extent has the Church of Jesus Christ in the world and its members been shaped by, changed by, converted by our faith in Jesus Christ? And the statement underlying that question is that it is difficult, if not impossible, for a church that is unchanged to make disciples, to see people's lives changed, and certainly to see the world changed. So we believe that it's important for us to be able to experience change, transformation, conversion in our lives so that we can carry out the mission of the church. We began this past Sunday by reading from Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 12, in which he writes to the church then and now about how important it is not to be conformed, but to be transformed, to be changed, and to experience that transformation in our minds. And we may struggle with that a bit because we more naturally believe that faith is a matter of the heart. Well, as we're experiencing that struggle, it's probably important for us to remember that as Mark and Luke record it in their Gospels, when Jesus is asked by the people around him to identify the greatest commandment, he says the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, but also with all your mind and with all your soul and all your strength. And of those four, it might be most difficult for us to imagine. How do you love the Lord with your mind? We believe that love is originally an action of the heart, and love with soul feels natural to us because we imagine the soul to be eternal, eternally engaged with God. And we can even imagine that loving God with our strength is how we act, how we serve in the world, how we show our love for God to people around us. But to love the Lord with our minds, what does that look like? Maybe it's as simple as asking, are your thoughts Christ-like? It's easy to be Christ-like in your actions or in your words. Maybe it's easier to be Christ-like in those ways, but it's difficult to control the things that pass through your mind. But it's important. How we think and what we think is important to our faith. And Jesus says so almost from the very beginning. In Matthew's Gospel, Jesus' first public discourse is the Sermon on the Mount. And in Matthew chapter 5, he says to the people who are gathered there on that mountainside, and he says to us now, "You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, 'You shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment.' But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment. And if you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. And if you say, 'You fool,' you will be liable to the hell of fire." Did you notice that in those liabilities that Jesus mentions, all of us are able to agree on that part about murder because that's an action, that's an activity of our strength? Probably all of us are able to agree with that insulting someone or calling someone a fool is an action that should be judge worthy because it's actually speaking out in a way, it's choosing to engage in that act. But what about that part of being angry with a brother or sister? That is merely an activity of the mind. And what Jesus seems to be saying is that so often our thoughts become visible to the world in our actions. So often our thoughts are revealed to the world in our words. But Jesus asks us not only to exercise the self-discipline of action and word, but to submit even our minds to the will of God. So Jesus seems to be pointing out to those people that we're utterly dependent upon the grace of God. We can control our actions, most of us believe. We can control our words, maybe not as easily as we would like to, but it's hard to rein in our thoughts. But Jesus tells us that's important not only as an expression of love for God, but it's important as an act of obedience to God. And that becomes clear in Jesus' own interaction with his disciples just a little later in the Gospel of Matthew. In chapter 16, in one of the most beautiful interactions that Jesus has with one of the most lovable of the disciples, Simon Peter, Jesus asks who the people say that he is, And Simon Peter says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus answers in chapter 16, verse 17, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Judah. Flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter," and in Greek that's Petros. "And on this rock," that's Petra, "I will build my church." So Simon gets this name Peter right here because he is rock solid in his understanding of who Jesus is. But then just mere verses later, when Jesus describes to his disciples that he'll have to be ridiculed and that he will be put to death and he'll be abused, Simon Peter says, "God forbid it, Lord. This must never happen to you." And Jesus turns to him in verse 23 and says, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you're setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." That quickly, Peter goes from having a mindset that enables him to experience Jesus as Messiah, Son of God, to having a mindset of wanting to be self-protective and wanting to protect Jesus and wanting to get in the way inadvertently of the will of God being carried out in the world. And that shows us how quickly our minds can change and how difficult it is for us to have a Christ-like mind. So here's the challenge to you and me today. Just as vigorously as we strive to honor God with the words that we speak and with the actions that we undertake, let's strive today to honor God with our thoughts. And certainly I know that today is a thought-provoking day, isn't it? On Inauguration Day here in the United States of America, probably our thoughts are very divided among people who make up this congregation and certainly among people who make up this nation. But our challenge is not merely to be self-disciplined and self-controlled in the words that we say, even though we disagree vehemently with people who have a different political view, but even to control the thoughts of our minds. Not to let our thoughts become angry thoughts toward others, and always to strive to have thoughts that are Christ-like and worthy of the love of Jesus Christ. Well, that's the importance of having a changed mind. And I pray that yours is changed and that yours is being changed by your faith in Jesus Christ. And I hope you'll join us again on Sunday morning as we talk about the importance of a changed heart. And I hope to see you again next Wednesday for the Wednesday Word.